This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today we have none other than former WWE, TNA, and ECW champion Rob Van Dam, former WCW wrestler, though, of course.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah, man. I believe that would be correct. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you no more. The volume fucked up.
Oh, no.
I couldn't. I can't hear you now.
Now I don't have the sound because I turned these on. I may have to unplug them.
Okay. Is there something I can do to make the echo stop on my end that you know of? I only got the one speaker on my laptop that I'm using right now. Yeah, I can't hear you at all right now. I don't know if you hear me, but I don't hear you. Nothing. Still nothing. Can you hear me? I don't know. Echo, echo. Talkies. Oh, I hear you now.
Okay, good. I can hear you too.
Okay.
All right. Glad that got fixed. I'm not the most technical guy. Probably you aren't either, I'd imagine.
No, but give me 2 hours. I can have someone here. I'll call somebody.
You're not the most technical, but you do have a podcast now, but you have a helper. I'll put the graphic up for the fans. RVDpod.com every Monday, 4:20 Eastern. You drop a new podcast and it's recorded live. That's even better, so the fans can interact with it on your YouTube channel. What motivated you to do this?
You know, I ask myself all the time because, like, for years, I kept getting asked, you know, about doing podcasts. As you can imagine, but I always said, no, I don't want to do it and build up a crowd from nothing and have to make a pitch deck and get sponsors and all that. I've just been through that so many times. So I said, if I have like a guarantee or whatever, then I was interested. Otherwise, I wasn't. And then somehow, I don't know, like this idea kind of sounded good to me, and I don't remember. But then I did it for a few weeks, and then I was like, hey, what about why am I doing this again? Like, I thought I wasn't going to do it unless I had a guarantee and sponsors lined up and stuff. And it took a while till I realized I actually don't. So I had to question, like, is this like, but it's fun. And also, I've always done this. You know, I used to do RVD radio on Blog Talk Radio, maybe before people were even doing podcasts, like I think 2008 or I don't know how far back. That's on my YouTube page as well, some of those. And I did RVD TV, and then I used to go to a studio and do RVD Live. And I've just always enjoyed talking off the cuff, unscripted. I've always enjoyed sharing my insight to people who might be interested in hearing my perspective. You know, normally I'm not the talkiest guy in the room. I keep to myself, and loud people disrupt my zen. So times like this where I'm doing podcasts or interviews, I feel like, well, they're tuning in because they want to hear my take on it, so it has value there. Otherwise, I normally keep to myself. So I've always enjoyed that. I'm having fun with One of a Kind podcast. All I'm doing is the interviews, and I got a crew of two that I'm trying to keep them on the same page, because I don't know. I mean, you know, our numbers are coming up from down, so I got all kinds of questions on algorithm that I don't understand, and I'm not sure that everybody on my crew understands it either. I think we're still experimenting because of the conversations, you know, like maybe this is messing it up. No, because the numbers are going up, so it proves it, so it's doing better. And I don't know. I swear I could probably swear less. Maybe that would get the numbers up. And I am thinking of having my guy edit, but that's just not me. I normally don't believe in censorship overall. But having said that, just for this purpose, if it has a purpose, it has value, then we're talking about something else. I smoke. I don't know if YouTube holds that against our numbers or whatever, doesn't get behind us. But either way, we're growing, and it's been constantly on the grow. And like I said, I'm having fun with it. Just not preparing, but having my guy Dominic ask me questions about wrestlers, or if there's something I want to talk about, then that's my platform to do that as well.
One thing I noticed about you is you're honest. I've been around the wrestling business a long time, and a lot of wrestlers bullshit and exaggerate, where you don't try to put yourself over in every situation, and you kind of tell it like it is about wrestlers. Because I've met some of the guys you've talked about over the years, so I know that they're actually like how you describe them.
Yeah, that's something that I take pride in, and a lot of I call my values RVDeology, because this is the way that I live, and I share that on my YouTube page with full episodes. And at the end of the podcast, I usually talk for a few minutes, spread a little bit of my perspective and insight, because the feedback I get is so worth it. People telling me, wow, I needed to hear this. I didn't know I needed it, or you really helped me out so much. Or even just people telling me that they appreciate my values in life and it helps them with their problems. I mean, that's awesome. What could be better than that? So I try and always make an effort to do that. And one of my values is honesty. I pride myself in being really honest. And awareness is the first key when you're trying to adapt one of these values into your life. Be aware. So that means be aware when you're not being honest. Be aware when you're being honest when you normally wouldn't be. And the more you're aware of it, the more prevalent it becomes, the stronger part of your life it becomes. And that's how it works. And pretty soon it's one of your values as well. So I've always prided myself on being really honest. And like when I met Katie, it was really refreshing to know that she believed me, like right off the bat, because my evil ex, who I was married to, no matter what I said, she translated it to mean something else. I could literally, and now knowing the bigger picture, I know that we weren't a good match for each other. There was all kinds of chemical imbalance going on, which made life much harder. So it comes out in moments that you can't just take these moments by themselves and then say, that bitch, one time I said this, or she was fighting about forks in the drawer. I know the bigger picture, that's just where it's let out. But she didn't trust me. She didn't believe me, probably because she didn't trust and believe herself, because she knew she was lying and being dishonest. But I mean, I could say good morning. I know you're trying to start a fight. That's what it felt like. And with Katie, I told her, like one of the first times that we were talking, that I pride myself on being honest. And it was amazing that I knew she believed me. And she never accused me of lying, because all it takes is one time of someone telling me that they believe I'm a liar. And in my mind, that means I've got no credibility with you whatsoever, because I'm either a liar or I'm not. And I'm saying, when I'm telling you that I'm being honest and truthful, if you don't believe it, then I'm done talking to you. Now, I will tell a cop I've had nothing to drink, even if I've had a beer, or no, I wasn't speeding. I mean, there are times lying is the first line of defense. But for me, I don't live that way. So it's very exceptional when I have to pull something like that out for self-preservation, like the cop, for instance, as I mentioned. When I first got named Rob Van Dam in 91, the promoter, Ron Slinker, told me to tell people that I was his cousin, Jean-Claude Van Damme's cousin. And so I still feel like I owe people apologies from like 91, 92, probably part of 93, because that's what I was doing. That's what I was told to do. And people would say, man, how's your cousin? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, we don't really talk that much, but he's cool. And I'd let people think that I'm dude's cousin, and right now there's no way that I would do that because it's like it's honesty or nothing for me and my spirit. And that all changed, by the way, when I learned to focus on my spirit, which a lot of people, maybe most people, completely ignore. Mind, body, and spirit are all so important. And for so long, I'd worked on my body. I was working on my mind. I knew how to do that, but my spirit was completely ill. And that's when I walked away from WWE and had a little sabbatical. I needed to work on my spirit. And by doing that, I became such a better me. I don't even like the me pre-spirit enhancement. And when I think about the mindset, the way that I looked at the world, I was so young and premature. And I thought so basically a lot of times where I wouldn't do that now. So I'm always growing, and growing is important to me as well. So these are some of the things we talk about in addition to any relevant topics that you might think of on my podcast when I'm being interviewed. But I always like to share my insight and some stories that go along with it. I like to share where I learned these lessons. And, I've had a pretty long, adventurous life, so I'm not running out of stories. It's just time and setting the time and having the discipline to have that up my priority list enough to where I'll do it.
Speaking of our Jean-Claude Van Damme, you actually look more like him now than you did when you were younger. Have you been told that, or have you noticed that yourself?
No, honestly, I don't remember ever being told that I looked like him before Ron Slinker gave me the name. If I was, I don't remember it. It definitely wasn't often, but I was a big fan of his, and I was imitating him doing the kicks and splits from Bloodsport, but I thought that the name for me was something that would probably pass. I didn't know how behind it I was, but at that time I was told by Sheik and Sabu, it doesn't matter what they call you, your first couple of years, just get as much ring time as you can. I wrestled under a lot of different names on small shows. Didn't matter what they were doing to me. And I didn't think this would stick really, but afterwards, definitely people started telling me a lot that I look like him. Some people think they're talking to him, if I'm at a gas station or something, and if someone tells me they love my movies, then I always think there's a 60-40% chance they're talking about me, and that's against my favor. They probably mean him, but then sometimes I'll be like that movie where you fought the shark, and I'm like, hey, he does mean me. But I don't notice anymore in the later years than I do in the younger years as far as that goes. It's just something that I hear a lot. A lot of people still, I don't know if a lot, but over the years I've heard a lot of people will think of Shawn Michaels when they see me. I guess it's the ponytail. I don't know. But that's the number two thing that I still hear. Someone would be like, excuse me, are you Shawn Michaels? And then I'll just leave it at that and be like, no, but then if Katie says, it's RVD, like, oh no, that's what I meant. Like a lot of times they have wrestler in mind and they can't think of it. But then there's sometimes where they're just completely thinking that I am Shawn Michaels. But besides that, everything else is pretty rare. So I laugh at it. I've gotten Bruce Willis like twice. I don't know.
I have to say that Lionheart was probably my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme film. What was yours?
Well, by the way, I patterned my singlet after what Jean-Claude wore in Lionheart, specifically when he was fighting in the empty swimming pool, and he had the black singlet on. That was my first wrestling outfit that I went and bought. And eventually, Giant Baba wanted me to wear bright colors, so I started getting them airbrushed. And he wanted me to wear boots. So again, thank you, Giant Baba, for extending my career with the boots. But if I have to pick one, I might just go with Bloodsport as the original, which it wasn't his first one. He did Black Eagle, and there was No Retreat, No Surrender. My first couple movies were with the same production company that made No Retreat, No Surrender. So that was cool. I did Blood Moon and super fights with seasonal films. So I thought, yeah, I'm following in his path. This is cool. But I loved that was Billy Blank's movie. Kickboxer. I love that. But I guess I like the whole idea of the Kumite and the whole roundness of the whole story, the way it comes together with the blood sport. So that might be my favorite, possibly.
Yeah, hopefully they'll do a remake of that. They did the Kickboxer remake, but they haven't done the Bloodsport one yet.
It's about time for
the recent rumors. Yeah, definitely. The rumors that you are going to have a retirement match with Sabu coming up sometime this year. Is there any validity to those?
So Sabu wants to have a retirement match this year. I found that out talking to him about a documentary that I'm going to be producing on Sabu. Joe, my business partner, Joe Clark from Back Row Studios, he and I made my documentary Headstrong together. We did the whole thing by ourselves, and he's got some other stuff. If you want to look up Back Row Studios, he's done some good stuff, and he did one movie. It's named after one of the roads in LA. I think I call it Alameda, and that's not right, but it's one of those roads. Damn it, not Alma Street. Anyway, this dude starred in it, directed it, produced it, everything, and I was blown away how good he was in it. With everything, I was really impressed with him. But one of the future projects we want to do is a documentary on Sabu. We met with him to talk with him about it last week, and Sabu mentions to us that he wants to have another match, which I couldn't get him to come to Japan. A couple of years ago, I was working with Noah. Noah really wanted me to bring Sabu. You can lay down completely flat on the flight like a bed, and all you got to do is stand on the apron and be my partner, but he was against it. Now he's feeling better. I'm sure time is a factor, time away from the ring and time overall, and so his body's feeling better. He's able to work out more than he used to, and that's having that looping effect. He's feeling better because he's working out. He's working out because he's feeling better. He tells us that he does want to work on getting himself ready to inspire him, to keep him going, and to have one more match in 2024. And it just so happens to time with this documentary we were meeting him to talk about anyway. So I follow the patterns of the universe and the synchronicity, and this is just lining up perfect. Bam. He didn't mention, I asked him, does he know who his opponent is? And he said no, that he didn't have one yet or a match yet. I did see him mention me on, I think it was the Jerry Briscoe and John Layfield podcast. And we did say years ago that'd be cool if we did a retirement tour, if we both wanted to quit at the same time, which was feasible in the past because Sabu's always been nothing but wrestling. I knew he would wrestle until he put himself in the grave. Whereas I was always interested in other businesses, and I do some acting, and as an artist, I like to do stand-up comedy, whatever. Just, I could see if there was a reason to, I could see me being okay with moving on or retiring, and Sabu still, being older, that working out, so that with time we could do a tour. He was saying we could go to all the territories that we wrestled in over the years, go back to Australia for one final, tour, Japan, England, everything. So we talked about that, and that's all we talked about was years ago. Realistically, now, I would be, of course, interested in being his last opponent and wrestling with him. I doubt it would be my retirement match, as I'm not even thinking about retiring. Even when I think about not taking wrestling bookings anymore, I don't think I'll make a big deal about it and retire.
You had some pretty good showings in AEW recently. One of the matches was against Jack Perry. What do you think about this whole controversy with Jack Perry? They still haven't let him back after that skirmish with CM Punk.
The craziest thing is that it's so representative of how much the business has changed since you and I have been around it. It's gone from old school, good old boys, closed, locked door society to being a work-friendly environment that has to pass social standards, an equal opportunity employer. And I mean, obviously society has forced that to happen, but I'm still behind those closed doors for a lot of the time. So for me, observing it from my perspective, it's amazing to see how much it's changed, because it was meant way back in the day to be as racial or as homophobic or as politically incorrect as it was. I mean, it was meant to get heat out of stereotypes, and it was meant to be something that people on the outside never saw. You know, I still, like in 97, maybe 98, in Boston, I remember when the person that worked at the building, it'd be easier for him to cut through the dressing room to go from the catering, from the kitchen to the catering, and he would come through with a big tray of all these hot dogs. And Sabu was still so kayfabe. He would kick the guy out of the dressing room, and he would slap the tray of hot dogs. They're all over the place. And stuff. I was like, "Get out of here! Don't come back here!" Because that was the time, like when I broke in, like it was changing, and it was very much like that when that guy made that movie Beyond the Mat. What was it? Not Barry Bloom, right? Or was it?
Barry Blaustein, I think.
Yeah,
Blaustein,
I think so. Yeah. That was the first that I had ever heard of anybody trying to get around in the dressing room and expose it. And I knew that there was a lot of younger guys getting in the business that weren't trained like I was. I could see that. I could see that they weren't as committed as I was into the mindset, you know, and it stood up. But when that guy was there trying to interview us, not only did we refuse to be part of his project, but he was sabotaged in ways he probably was never even told about. He would leave his camera out. He would get sabotaged. He'd leave like videotapes, VHS tapes sitting by his camera. Somebody would come by, like maybe Pee Wee the referee, for instance, might have been Louis. People would come by and grab his those tapes, and they would hide them in holes in the wall, because the wall had like wood, and then there'd be spaces where there was just 2x4s above where the paneling was, and boom, boom, boom. And I'm sure he never found them. And you know, when they reconstructed the ECW arena, they probably found some really interesting, never seen before footage, and it probably could have, you know, been a budget concern. Who knows? Knowing what it takes going into making those movies, and knowing how much hard work that could have been, how much time, money. Maybe he had interviews with people that were never recovered. I don't know, but I'm just saying, you know, during that time, that's how it was. It was kayfabe. It was people. We made our living off of people that bought tickets wanting to see us fight each other. And now as people that come into the business that are trained by people that don't even believe in it themselves. And so then it becomes more staged, it becomes more what they believe it is, you know? So whereas it used to be about protecting the business, that got replaced with maybe safety first. And it's crazy that this little scuffle that Jack Perry and CM Punk had could cause such a huge eruption in the industry that police would be called, and then there'd be investigations, there'd be firings, and it just goes to show the movement that the business has taken, how it's evolved, and now it's more about being on a hot production set with millions of dollars involved, including what you're paying the players and the contracts and whatever agreements they have while they're on the set. Now you're in trouble like you would be if you were probably on the set of, you know, of a TV show, you know, and if you were on the Brady Bunch and you started beating all the Bradys up and stuff, you'd be gone from there too. But it's weird now to really think about that. I could have an issue with another wrestler. I don't know. Let's just say it was Scott Norton. Very random. Nothing about his wife being causing problems, but that just a little face off. If I was to deck him, I could be sued, could be arrested, could be held to regular civilian consequences, just like if we weren't in the wrestling world. And I don't know that I would do the same, but we're trained to do that. If you get beat up or if your rights are violated, someone's got to get sued. You're entitled. And that's kind of strange to me. I don't know if I would do that. If I got to fight with another wrestler and he punched me, I can't imagine saying I'm going to get a lawyer and sue. But I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's the world we live in now. And even the wrestling business is now so corporate, so work friendly, like that they don't worry about protecting the business. That's why they do spots that take 15 minutes to set up, even if it kills a business, and then they can do the spot anyway. You throw the spot out if it's going to kill the business. That's in my mindset, and that probably makes me a dinosaur. I don't know. Well, I guess I do know, and it does. At least makes me an OG. But at the same time, as you saw in my 3 matches with AEW, I'm still old school mind, but I took care of myself and I stretched, and I always knew that what I was doing, even if I didn't conform to what everyone else was doing, was better for me. So look at me now. You see me doing the Northern Lights. The 53-year-olds do that. The suplex, the everything. You see me doing my back kicks. First, it was just a back kick on Jack Perry. Everyone was like, "Whoa, you threw that back kick so high and fast!" And wow, someone your age. And that's what society says now. Is like. It'd be like Scott Norton or 53-year-old RVD sues 69-year-old Scott Norton. I mean, that's how the world sees it, and living it. I got to tell you, it's not like it was before, unless you manifest it to be. If you're thinking that you're old in your 30s, then you can feel that way. I mean, you can do that to yourself. But I'm happy to tell you, and I'm sure. What's his name, Mr. Ass, Billy Gunn, and several other guys, because he's 60, 59, whatever he is. I'm sure there's a lot of us that can tell you that you can live how you want to live, and that doesn't involve believing everything that you hear. It involves making the right decisions for you, and then boom, where's the payoff? Here I am. I'm still not only able to wrestle, I'm still doing it, and I'm able to do it selectively when I want to do it. So everything's awesome here. I do hope that you'll see me in AEW again, but it seems like the last couple were opportunity, because one was by Battle Creek, where I grew up in Grand Rapids. The other one was Philly. So I would suspect there would have to be an idea for them to bring me in. I'm not under any kind of long-term contract. Obviously, I have a good relationship with them. So hopefully there'll be the right reason and to do it again.
I hope you get that too. You're talking about longevity. There's a fan on here that said, "You look very good. You've aged excellent. Not that you're old." What's your secret for longevity? Stretching, you mentioned, not doing anything too crazy.
Honestly, besides genetics and conditioning, what else could it be? Let me start by just saying that. If you have an answer, then post it in the comments. But I figure for all of us, we all have whatever we have with genetics. And then conditioning. Now, conditioning is, getting your body prepared for whatever it is you're conditioning for. If you're conditioning for longevity, it's going to be avoiding toxins that age your body. It's going to be making the right decisions. And believe it or not, cannabis is part of that for me. I always knew that eventually it would be completely legal, like it used to be. I understand that it's prohibited because it could replace 80 to 90% of big business conglomerate companies that are profiting off of prohibition. And that's why it's prohibited. So they did it with lies. People learn that a lot of it was lies, but they don't care enough to really get behind it. Like obviously I have. I know how much it could help, like cancer patients, people, and I put them first just because, firsthand experience. I've seen them, and I know it's against policy to even recommend cannabis to patients that are dying, that don't have an appetite, that can't eat, that are wasting away, that can't sleep, that are just living with overall uncomfortableness. All these things that when I was in California, all these things were legal by the state, but because they were federally illegal, the federal government says there's no medicinal value, even though they had the patent on medicinal marijuana and gave Marinol, which is 100% synthetic medicinal marijuana, to patients for years. But that was their hypocritical stance on it. And knowing that, the big businesses like the City of Hope that deal with cancer patients, it's their policy to watch people suffer and not mention something that could help them all. Why? So that we'll use plastics and textiles instead of hemp. That's really what it's all about. So we use pharmaceuticals. Anyway, so all of that has really brought my passion in. And when you talk about longevity, a lot of people, even if they're okay with cannabis use, as in, well, I don't think someone should go to jail for it, or I hear it's not as bad as they say, still most people think of it more as like a dirty habit. I don't. Many people that, like me, know that it can be used productively with a healthy lifestyle to actually increase your life expectancy. I learned that from my mentor, Jack Herer, who is one of the very top OGs in the world of the cannabis plant. Jack Herer spent years trying to educate everybody on the fact that hemp can be used for over 5,000 different things, and all the dirty reasons and the history of marijuana prohibition. So I was really lucky to have him as a mentor. He's passed away now. There's a cannabis strain named Jack Herer that people fuck up the pronunciation of everywhere you go. Depending on where you're at, they say it different, from Jack Herer, but he used to tell me, think of terror. And he told me a long time ago that they did this study in the 70s, and I've looked it up, and there seems to be a mythical situation where there's a lost test that proved this of people. And of course, they had the different variables: people smoking cigarettes, people smoking weed and cigarettes, and people just smoking weed. And guess what? And people not smoking anything. And the people with the longest life expectancies weren't the people that didn't smoke anything. It was the people that smoked weed. And I'm not saying everybody should. I'm saying I've been studying it for decades. This information I'm giving you now is going to come out during your lifetime. You're going to find out. But right now, they don't do a lot of studying. It's been banned since Mayor LaGuardia decided to study in the 40s marijuana to see if the reasons that it was prohibited were the reasons he should do it in New York City. And when he came back with all these contradictions, Harry Anslinger, the head of the DEA, prohibited all future testing on marijuana. And it forever. And now that it's quasi legal, we're starting to learn more and more as we're looking at it. But just a few years ago, and it still does technically exist, his ban, as does the stamp tax law, the tax stamp law, which is how they outlawed marijuana here in the United States. Back in 1937, you had to provide a stamp to the government in order to get permission to grow hemp. But in order to get the stamp, you had to already be growing hemp to prove you deserved it, and you had to show it. And it was like a loop where there's no way in, and thereby it prohibited because it was impossible to go through their system. And anyway, that's a quick education for you right now. But what I'm telling you is, conditioning is what you eat, It's how you take care of your body. Stretching is good. Working out, exercising, all of that is good. What you eat, avoiding cholesterol, and I take a lot of different supplements to help increase my blood flow. I keep up with my body. I'm not working for a company under long-time contract now. So I, as owner of my brand, I've been going and getting my lungs x-rayed, my heart x-rayed, and some stuff that bothers me, some stuff that doesn't. Two different doctors told me that after 30 some years of pretty heavy smoking of the reefer, my lungs are clear. There's no sign of smoking. There's no discoloration, inflammation. So take that as you will. But I feel like there's a lot more learning for everybody to do if they really wanted to get the most benefits, which most people don't. They'd rather not hear about marijuana. They think it's dirty. It's something like, but in reality, when we learn to utilize it, you can make everything in your house out of it, not just the lumber, the actual paint, the lacquer, whatever you put over it, primer, everything. It used to just be like shitty t-shirts. But I learned that you can use hemp to replace everything. You can eat it. You can use it for shampoo. Henry Ford made a car out of hemp that was stronger than a normal car, but weighed less. And it ran on hemp seed oil for fuel. So we could be self-sufficient and literally theoretically grow our own supply and take care of ourselves, which was the idea behind that whole program that was introduced to the World Fair in I think 41 or something. But then what about nylon, and what about plastics and textiles, and what about things that the one percenters that really own the world, what about where they're making their money? So they're changing over, so they're going to be able to make money off cannabis too, but they're the ones that profit from prohibition. And if you didn't know that, I'm honest. If I'm honest, I'm telling you the truth.
Definitely. I see you got a little cat or a dog behind you there, black. What is that critter?
Yeah, Barbie. Come here, baby. Barbie is a, come here. Oh, Brussels Griffon, they call it. It's hard to see her black face. Oh, there you go. You show up. A lot of times the pictures, her little black face doesn't show up good. But good job, Barbar. She's a Brussels Griffon, and they have short hair and long hair. And we fell in love with the breed. We fell in love with the breed, I guess, on Instagram, and Katie found her. We were following her when she was still in the womb from her breeder, and Katie flew from Vegas all the way to Austin, and picked Barbie up and brought her back, and she's awesome. And we're thinking about doing that with another dog from the same breeder. So I'm trying to figure out, I think that would make that her sister aunt. But we love dogs. We just had one pass away a few weeks ago, and Katie had that dog when we met, and maybe 5 years before that, or 4 or 5 years before that. So long time, 13. She just turned 14, the dog. So that's always really rough, to get through, because dogs are so awesome, and they just give you unconditional love all the time. So unfortunately, they don't have the same life expectancy as us, but RVDeology tells me, and I tell everyone that's listening, if you think for sure that you're going to outlive your dog, you're not being honest with yourself, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. And that's always my perspective. That's not just something I got to remind myself. It's something I remind other people, but that is my perspective. So I notice when people say, oh, it's sad knowing that someday I'm going to have to bury grandma. You don't know that. You don't know what's going to happen to you tonight. And I can tell you about so many friends of mine, of yours, of the listeners, people that that died in accidents. And guess what? They had plans. Brody Lee, on Christmas. He thought he was going to be there for New Year's. He was making plans with his family, right? That's the way that life is, honestly. And I'm not saying that to take away anything but blissful ignorance. And I just think being honest like that gives everybody a clearer perspective of the right way to live, instead of living as if just everything's gonna work out. You got a 30-year mortgage and you already know at the end of the 30 years what you're gonna do. No, you don't. I can tell you right now, you don't know for sure what you're gonna be doing in 2 days. Neither do I. But we have to plan on being around. We hope. And that's the best way, is even if you say it silently to yourself, when you say, well, I'm going to be in Canada next month, even if it's to yourself, try to be like, hopefully, or God willing. Because if you just spit it out like fact, then you're living in a world that's not real, dude. Unfortunately, I can tell you, because I've lost a lot of people and had to deal with it and had to deal with making that real. So just telling you, we don't know, but we hope for the best, and you get a dog, and the dog's only supposed to live, 10, 12 years, and you're supposed to live 80, whatever it is. Guess what? It doesn't work out that way always. And I can tell you, I looked it up. I looked up the top 10 causes of human death. Not one of them says old age. People don't live their whole life expectancy and then just die from reaching a certain line, a certain age. There's other complications that come with being old, and those are all factors on how you've conditioned yourself over your life. Also, crossed with some uncontrollable factors too. But that's some RVDeology for you. I don't know how long you're going to live, and neither do you. But if you want to live longer, then you got to live in such a way that will provide you better expectations.
Very good advice and ideology for sure. There's a fan on here, Dustin, wants to know, what's your favorite crime mafia family to read about or watch on YouTube? I know you're a big fan of that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been reading books and watching documentaries and interviews for so long. Sometimes I go back and reread, but I have a different perspective now, because now I know more of the background that didn't make as much sense to me before. And so I get stuck in that world, and it's fascinating. And sometimes I'll pick a family too, and I'll just be, I'm gonna learn about Chicago today, make that my go-to, but not just Chicago, but when in Chicago, because I go back to Al Capone and then Frank Nitti. Do I go ahead to like the Family Secrets era, which is cool because these guys were alive during my time. I think 2007 might have been Family Secrets, where so many guys got busted because Frank, what's your name? It begins with a C, not Colada. I'll get back to it, but anyway, he told on his dad, flipped on his own dad more wire, and that's what always happens, is they flip. But so sometimes, anyway, I'll stay on Chicago, like in during this area, or a certain guy, Jimmy the Weasel Fradiano. Let me rewatch his stuff, or Hollywood in the 40s. So I switch it around a lot and stuff, and I love the New York stronghold of the Italian mafia, but I think that I find West Coast stuff a little more interesting because I feel like there's not as much about it. The California mafia wasn't necessarily considered that strong. So, there's a few characters like Mickey Cohen that people know about. If you're not into it, then you don't know about maybe anybody else, the Milanos and oh no, what's Jack? Anyway, shit. Now I'm blanking on some of the Jack. Damn it. He was the guy forever from New York. Anyway, I talked to his cousin. No, his nephew. I think California, I think that I love the movie that everyone loves, the Martin Scorsese on Henry Hill. Phew. I feel my sugar dropping, and it's awesome because it makes it hard to hold thoughts when my sugar drops. Hold on a second.
I can look it up. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, let me just get something. I get hypoglycemic. It's all good. There's another something people don't know in general, but I've gotten hypoglycemic like my whole life, and if I don't eat, it's real easy to stay on top of, but again, I screw up, and if I go a long time without eating, especially if I'm taking caffeine or thermogenics or something that'll speed up my metabolism, make me burn even faster, my sugar drops. And so what happens is normally you have extra, you have like an extra 5 pounds of carbs in your liver, and then you tap into that when your blood sugar is low, and then boom, you're all set. People like me that become hypoglycemic, we process everything. So when you tap in for the extras, there's nothing there. And then it sends a message up to the brain that releases panic endorphins. And usually the first sign is that I just start getting really hot and I feel it coming on. It took a long time till I could recognize it. But there's that. And then I start like sweating. And then brain fog. I felt the brain fog on that one because I can't think of the number one mobster that ran the LA family for over 40 years here. But anyway, Booker T, when he and I were road wives, he seen me do this so much. And I used to be scared because I didn't know what it was. And it'd be like 30 degrees outside, freezing. And I'd be sitting out on a bench, just pouring sweat. And he'd have to go run to the vending machine. I knew I craved sugar, so he would go and get me candy bars or whatever. But I finally went to a doctor that said, this is hypoglycemia. Like it's an endocrinologist that broke it down for me and told me about the carbs and everything. Your textbook, why did nobody tell you this? This is easy. That's exactly what's happening. And she said, as long as I eat 40 carbs every 2 to 3 hours, like it'll never happen. And that does appear to be true, but a lot of times, I mess up and it'll be a couple hours into the day, and sometimes I haven't even eaten breakfast yet and I've been drinking coffee. That almost always triggers it. But I got these little glucose pills. It's something where if I let it go untreated long enough and was really, really bad about it all the time, it could turn into a pre-diabetic kind of issue. But in case anyone's listening and you have it happen too, it's blood sugar. And these little glucose pills are so easy to eat. And I don't eat a lot of sugar, so in theory, this should be happening to me more often than before I took sugar out of my diet. But it doesn't, because I'm usually pretty good at it. But anyway, I'm going to say West Coast, as far as which mafia family, the LA family, the Las Vegas family as well. But they all work together with Frank Bapinciero in San Diego. And the Las Vegas mafia, the last known mafia killing and activity was in 97. So I'm sure there's still characters out here. In fact, I know because I've met some of them. But as far as organized crime having a hold on Vegas here, I doubt the Italians are even the top one. And my interest doesn't go into the Chinese mafia and Albanians and all that. It's strictly Italian, La Cosa Nostra. That's my my go-to that I like to read and learn about. So everything kind of like Chicago controls like everything west of the Mississippi. So even if you're Johnny Roselli and you're extorting the unions in Hollywood here or in LA, you still got sat from Chicago. And the guys in the LA family were from Chicago, also Ohio. But that's the way it is. Chicago was in New York, had the 5 families, so they're the strongest. But there's like 26 families all around the country, 24 to 26, depending on what you read, exactly like the wrestling territories.
Yeah, and back in the older days, there was more mafia interactions with wrestling. I know in the Montreal territory for sure there was.
Yeah.
And Kevin Sullivan has told me some other stories that I won't get into publicly, but I'm sure you've heard some stories about the connections of the past.
Yeah, of course. So Vito Rizzuto was he came down here and did some famous killings and some business, but I think him and his family, I believe, ran Montreal for the most part, if I'm not mistaken, with Vito Catroni. As you can tell, Cannabis has totally fucked my memory. I just like this.
Good Catroni was Dino Bravo's uncle-in-law.
Right, so I find that fascinating. Yeah, and he was most likely responsible for Dino Bravo's death. So, yeah, something I'm interested in. My mind's like a steel trap, and facts are important. And the thing about nonfiction is it all relates to itself. Like everything is connected, as opposed to like the Marvel universe that has to connect within itself. And all the way back to our president JFK being shot, but corruption within all of our systems, because of the unions, but also because of politicians, like they've always been really, really strong. And I guess one thing that fascinates me is just how different a mobster's life would be than mine. And I not only have guilt and compassion and empathy, I would probably pull over and cry if I was to be driving and if I hit an animal, a dog or something. If I killed it, I'm sure I would. It'd break my heart, is what I'm saying. These mobsters, it's just their way of life. Murder is just something they got to do, and so they will kill their best friend and do it by setting him up to get false trust out of them. So they'll invite a buddy to go out, to go partying. They'll go from this bar to that bar. And then when they go to bar C, they're going to put a bullet in the back of his head in the car, or when they get there, whatever, boom. And then they do it. And they just like seem to go on with their business. And that's something that I don't have to learn from firsthand experience. I would rather, just read about it and I'll get enough from that as far as, that's not consistent with my values. And so probably that's what's fascinating. You think about it, and there's so many different people that have completely different lives, different agendas, different beliefs. And the basic thinkers don't understand that. They think that we're all the same. And thereby, if you drink 4 cups of coffee every day for a couple of weeks and then stop, you're going to get a headache because they did. They can't accept that we're all so different. We're all different colors. We speak different. We're different shapes. How could you think we're all going to react chemically to the same stimuli as everybody else? It's just a basic way of thinking. And again, this is something that I just try to point out with my RVDeology.
There's a fan on here asking if you ever got high with the Iron Sheik. Did you ever cross paths with him over the years?
Yes, I have. So in 94, 2005, this is when I started coming out here to where I live right now in Las Vegas. I started coming out for this company, NWC, and they used a bunch of old school, a bunch of the wrestlers from that were in WWE but might have not be there anymore. Honky Tonk Man, Junkyard Dog, Virgil, Jim Neidhart. They regularly used a lot of those. And anyway, I was living in Georgia, and so I would see the Iron Sheik on travel, and we would be flying together, whether it was at the first stop or second at a connection in Atlanta. So I got to know him then, and the first time that I saw him, and I would have been just 25, not real experience in life overall at all. But we went outside because we had enough time before the flight. And we were in one of those, I think they're called pylons, a construction pylon, a big round piece of cement that was a tunnel that we were standing in. And he pulled out some weed because he said, do you smoke Pacololo or whatever he called it? Did he call it Pacololo? And anyway, I said, I do. And he wanted me to roll us a joint. I was like, oh, I can't roll, which I didn't know how to roll at that time. I was smoking pipes or bongs, and that was it. I hadn't any experience rolling. It's okay. You go ahead. You roll okay. And I was like, damn. It was like windy, and we're outside. And he had, and I didn't know how to roll. And so he gives me a piece of rolling paper that's all wrinkled up. Unwrinkle it. I'm looking at it, and he gives me some bud in my hand, and I'm like, I'm trying to break it up and sprinkle it, and it's blowing all over from the wind. And I'm sure I rolled what probably looked like a piece of taffy in a wrapper with two twisted ends. It was definitely pregnant in the middle, and I was like, I think you should roll it. It's okay. And so he lit it. We smoked it. However, that thing went down. And I learned one thing that I would hear him say many times over the years: everything okay in moderation. May not be the best Iron Sheik accent, but those were the words. Everything is okay in moderation. And I've heard him say that so many times, which he's saying, especially when it comes to drugs. And think about it with other things too. It's a pretty good thing to live by. On the outro of my Iron Sheik story, something that I think is very funny, and perhaps you guys will too. The promoter, TC Martin, had us staying together, Iron Sheik and I, in a room. And this was probably the second or third trip that I'd done with him. I don't know. But he left to go to the airport ahead of me. Big surprise. I'm a last minute person. So he got on a hotel shuttle or a ride when I was still laying out by the pool with Sabu and with Zuma, Tom Howard. I can't remember shit with this weed. Just joking. The details are important. I came in to grab my bags, and the Iron Sheik had left an autographed 8x10 on the cabinet that the TV sits on that's in every hotel room, and it said "To Maid," M-A-I-D, and he signed it Iron Sheik. And that was like his tip that he left for the maid that was going to come in after we checked out. And I thought that was that was very funny and a great story, and one that I like to share, especially when I learned that he usually doesn't give any pictures out. He tries to barter them, and his range of what he will accept for an autographed picture could go from 10% off what we just ordered at the drive-through, or he could be trying to get management to front some lap dances at a strip club to us. So the value is definitely circumstantial on those.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard the same stories. There's another fan that just had a question. If you still talk to ICP, they always put you over on interviews.
I don't not talk to them, but I think it's been a while. We came up together. So when I was just training, sometimes we would train together, you know, and I built a ring and they would come over, at least Joe would, Joe Bruce. I always knew him a little more than his partner, but Joe Bruce was the one, as I understand it, that was like the meat of ICP. And I knew them before it was Insane Clown Posse, when it was Inner City Posse with the dog beats. And when he first showed me a cassette tape and I listened to them, I was so impressed. And I was like, bro, you got to follow this up. And Joe's like, oh, you know, I don't really, you know, I really just want to wrestle, man. I want to wrestle. And I was like, but you're better at this than you are at wrestling. Like, I feel like you have a calling here. I'm not so sure about this. And I always felt that way. And it was cool to see him grow. And I would hear from him once a year over the years. He would try to get me to come to the gathering, which never appealed to me. And we never worked out the right deal. We almost did one year. He was going to do a favor for me. I was going to do a favor for him. And I dropped the ball actually and forgot to call him back. And then when a third person told me that he told them that, oh, he's right. Yeah, I guess he's right. I was supposed to call him back, and whatever, wasn't meant to be or whatever. But yeah, you know, those guys. I saw Rudy, who recently, like, I'm talking to him for 2 or 3 minutes, so I realized who he was. I had to ask him, like, dude, are you Rudy? Like, why? Because he just acted like, because I hadn't seen him in 10, 15 years, and like, it's weird when someone just starts talking to you as if, you know, he's not super happy to see you, but just to be like, hey, dude, yeah, so weren't you at that? I heard you were at that one thing last week or whatever. Yeah, man. Just start right into a conversation. I say, wait a minute. Can I, you know, as they say, address the elephant in the room? Dude, how long has it been since we've seen him? Dude, how am I supposed to know that's you, bro? Damn, Rudy. So they do that. But fans do that to me as well. There's 2 different ways that fans react to me when I'm walking by them at a restaurant, the airport, hotel, anything. If it's a walk by kind of acknowledgement, there's either the excited one, RVD. Oh, wait, RVD. I can't really do the D right now. RVD. Something like that. Or they'll walk by me and they act just like we know each other and like we see each other every day. Walk by and they'll be like, hey, man, how's it going, Rob? Or like, hey, what's up, RVD? I'm just, hey. And that one throws me more than the other one because, you know, RVD, I'm kind of more used to being some excitement. And I think, like, what is behind the mindset of the guy that just comes up, you having a good day, Rob? And just keeps walking by. And then but it's cool, you know. I'm just a real dude, and they find that out right away when they feel my genuine vibes. And if someone says, can we get a photo? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I already know they want it. You know, they don't even have to ask if I see it. I see your wife standing there with the camera. Let's do it. Sure, bro. You know, so it's all good. But I hope to talk to ICP sometime again soon, but I think it's been a minute.
Last thing I'll ask you about today, because we kind of cover UFOs on this channel too, some UFO topics. What are your thoughts on kind of, it seems like it's being more accepted today to talk about unidentified aerial phenomena, and the government kind of admitting it exists, but not actually saying it's not necessarily Russia or China, it might be something else, but I'm just curious your thoughts on the subject.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be really huge, and then like maybe it just blew over, just like somebody's potential heat in the business recently looked like it was going to happen the same way. So you never know. Some of them are going to be little waves and some are bigger. It depends on who's ready to hear these things and when. So my take on it is I've always believed that, of course, it's possible. You know, one thing that I find basic thinkers are not comfortable with is admitting that they don't know something. It makes them uncomfortable. And me, I'm fine telling you when we die, guess what? I don't know what's going to happen. Now there's so many Christians right now that are going to think that was sacrilegious, blasphemous for me to say. And maybe they're going to even come after me and say, I must not have faith if I don't know for sure that I'm going to end up in the pearly gates, whatever, dude. You know, hey, you don't know either. How do you like that one? So, to be honest with yourself, you have to look at it that way. And there's a lot of things. UFO is one of them. I think, of course, it's possible that we're not the only little grain of sand in this huge universe that has a life form on it. In fact, I think we found some life form that might not be classified as intelligent, but could they be intelligent? Absolutely. And could we have been some kind of a genetic offspring of a being from another planet or beings, a society, whatever? Absolutely. Of course. We could just be like pollen blowing through the universe that landed here. That could have been just like what happens with when Big Mama marijuana is ready to bud and the pollens come off the male plant. Look, I don't know, so I'm not going to say, of course. And people that do, I don't even want to talk to them. But if you ever watch the TV show Ancient Aliens, they throw out some incredibly convincing, what I'll call facts when it comes to the pyramids and how they're lined up with maps that you could only see from the sky, and how certain constructions of rock that were built thousands of years ago were made perfect as if they were created with the machines that we still don't even have today. Perfect lines, perfect symmetry. There's a lot of things, and watch the show, because that's just one area, but there's so many, besides the fact that studying Greek mythology when I was a kid, I realized that there was so much in common with what I was taught before that with Christianity. So why would I say I know for sure that it was Noah, and he had two of each animal on his ark, and the world was flooded? Because the Greeks say almost the same thing happened, but now it's Deucalion. And Deucalion and his wife threw rocks over their shoulders to repopulate a male or a female after the big flood. The Vikings, the Indians, they got their own versions of the flood. So is it possible that the story got changed or altered a little bit over the years? Yes. That doesn't mean that it's true, but is it possible that it really did happen and everyone went their own way and told their own story? Sure. So if you're gonna open up your mind enough to say that's possible, then how about the possibility that maybe it isn't a guy in the sky, but instead a creature that lives on another planet? And really, what's the difference anyway, prospectively? And with Greek mythology, I had kids at school telling me they were so confused, because they believed in Samson because he's in the Bible, but they couldn't believe in Hercules. Well, couldn't they be the same person? They sound like it. And then, no, Samson's real. Well, wait a minute. I mean, he defeated 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass. Are you telling me you believe that's real because his strength was in his hair? What about Hercules? And he did this and this and this. And so long ago, I realized if the answer is yes, it's just as possible as not possible to something, then I haven't opened up opened up enough mind to look at it as a strong maybe. When you start comparing commonalities, then it goes a little further, and eventually some things actually make sense to me. And so then I start actually developing a belief where, I believe that, this is possible, but do I know that? No. And that's what faith is knowing something or telling yourself that you know something without proof. Not sure that's a good thing.
Very good point. Now, there's been a lot of fan questions that we have not answered on here, and I'm going to tell all these fans if they want to be interactive with you. Hopefully, we'll have you back sometime, but you also have this podcast where you do live videos every Monday, 4:20. They can subscribe to your YouTube channel, and they can also ask you on there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it goes on Premier Streaming Network first, and then shortly after it goes on. Well, first we record it live on my YouTube page, So we have a chat room and fans there, and that's fun. We've been doing that for just the last several weeks and find it to be way more enjoyable. So then it goes to, I think, Premier Streaming Network, and then it ends up back on YouTube, maybe a place or two in between, wherever the podcast goes. But all of my social media is The Real RVD. So that's where my YouTube page is as well. And because all I do is talk, but they put clips up, as well as the full episodes of my podcast and any other videos that we might be posting besides the podcast. But we've been doing the podcast every week. And, it inspires me to talk like I am right here. My host has a few questions in mind. I may or may not have a few things that I want to address or bring up. But at the end of it, every time, I always think like, wow, that was a fun conversation. Let's do it again next week.
Very good. And I'll let you close this off with whatever message you want to give to the fans. Thanks very much for your time.
Awesome. Well, here's my Jerry Springer moment then. I end most of my podcast episodes giving my insight, my RVDeology. These are values that are constant in my mind. So I don't remind myself, this is how I see things, is with these things in mind always. I find basic thinkers overall, it's not natural for them to have empathy or to think about how their actions are going to affect the other person. And that to me, well, first off, it's a little scary because when I started realizing how common it was, I started thinking like how big of an exaggeration is it to draw a line between an absence of empathy and just psychopathism, where you just psychopathy, you don't even know. And I don't want to get I kind of do want to get too deep, but join me on my podcast and we will. But here's the thing. Don't be a basic thinker. Think outside the box, because nobody aims to be status quo. They're mundane for a reason, so that mundane has a definition. So, look at yourself and acknowledge, accept, and be proud of some of the things that makes you stand out, whether you think you're smarter or it's your body or it's this or you're funny or that or whatever. It could be something that wouldn't even mean anything to me, because guess what? We all have different values. And that's the one thing that I want you to always remember. Keep that in mind. We don't all have the same value. So if you have a talk with somebody that's speaking as if you would have the same values, then they're doing what I call basic thinking. It doesn't mean they're like that all the time, but they're trying to lower you into an unintelligent conversation. Example, bro, you really think that Tara is better looking than Amy? Dude, you're crazy. Well, he'd rather be with Amy than Tara, or Tara than Amy, or whatever. Guess what? It doesn't matter, because we all have our own values. So that's a stupid conversation. There's not a right answer. He's not going to be able to have evidence, no matter how many of his friends back him up, to prove that he was right and you were wrong. And you shouldn't have to be too intelligent to see what I'm saying there. That should be self-explanatory. So just remember, you have your values. Try to make them good values. Try to keep them in mind. Try to strengthen them by being more aware. Write them down if you haven't done that. And if you want to do some inner searching, and then put your priorities, and then figure out what's the difference between a value and a priority. Bam! Tell you what, you will learn a lot about yourself. Oh, this is why I do things. Because a lot of people, and this is basic thinking too, people be like, man, I don't know, what is wrong with my lazy ass, man? Why don't I get outside and ride my bike more? Okay, I'm going to tell you why. You like the idea of doing it more than you like actually going and doing it. In other words, it's not the top of your priority list. If it was, guess what? You would go and do it. Boom. I might have just solved problems that you have with yourself. Apply that to what you will, because we all do that. And I'm comfortable knowing, like, damn, I sure wish I spent a few hours every day working on that Rob Van Dam autobiography. I mean, it's important to me that I write my story. I don't want someone else telling my story. They're not going to get it. I have a one-of-a-kind perspective. Why don't I work on it more? Maybe I'd even get frustrated at myself before I had the growth to accept and realize other things are more important to me. And then on top of that, here's something that I go with, the flow. I go with the flow. When it is important enough, the universe will bring it to the front of my plate, and then there'll be a reason that it's so important to me. That's the way everything works when you're plugged in. And I work on staying plugged in by being conscious of how I'm living up to my own values and not allowing negativity in. A negative comment or thought will knock you right out of being plugged into the wall like an outlet. So don't allow that. And if you're thinking negative thoughts, think good thoughts. Think about being plugged in. If you want to study the universe like I'm doing, now you don't have to, and you're welcome to be a basic thinker. But if you start a conversation up with me and you want to have a basic convo, I don't have basic thoughts. So I'm going to give you the heads up right now. But dude, if you're not sick of hearing me talk like I am, by the way, it hurts to hear my own gravelly, graspy voice. But it happens to wrestlers. Al Snow does it. He didn't even smoke pot unless he's bogarting it. But anyway, tune into my podcast. We do that every week. It's fun. You can go watch 30 some back episodes on my YouTube page right now. Once in a while, we have a guest. Mix it up. Don't really have a format that's pro or against having a guest yet, but thanks for having me on your show. I'd be happy to do it again whenever it's convenient for you.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button.